Hi, this is Jules from Tarot Adventures with Jules, and today I'm here to do a review of the Landback Tarot and Oracle of Colonization by Auntie Kay's Tarot. The deeper I dive into the Landback Tarot and Oracle of Colonization, the more impressed I am by the deep level of love and care that Krista de Moorflute has so obviously put into both of these decks. All of the details, including the beautiful birch bark backs of the cards, and the extensive and fully colored guidebook, along with the recycled materials used for the tuck box, are clear evidence that no detail of this project has been overlooked. The Landback Tarot is inspired by the structure of the Rider-Waite-Smith, re-envisioned through the lens of a queer Indigenous individual of Lakota and Cree descent, whose perspective has helped to shape and inform this deck. I'm going to flip the camera around so we can take a closer look at some of the details of this deck. The guidebook for this deck is such a fabulous resource. I so appreciate all the elements included, whether it's Krista's insights on the inspiration for the images and concept of the Landback Tarot, a selection of absolutely fabulous spreads, quick references for all of the major arcana, or the inclusion of the astrological associations with each of the cards. I love the new titles that Krista has given to many of the cards in this deck, re-envisioning the High Priestess as the healer, the Empress as today's future, the Emperor as yesterday's foundation, or the Hierophant as the charlatan. I especially love the re-envisioning of the Hermit as the storyteller. I feel like this brings the process of introspection and examination full circle when that individual who has gone through that process then moves forward into this stage of telling others about what they've experienced. Retreat is only one aspect of this card, and I love the use of the term storyteller for this. Speaking of the term storyteller, Krista's role as a storyteller comes through in every aspect of this deck. She includes references to different events in Canadian history woven through the structure of tarot. The Temperance card is very poignant. Krista is a 60 scoop survivor, and I so appreciate her insights on this experience. The Judgment card is framed in the context of missing and murdered Indigenous women, a shameful aspect of Canadian and U.S. history that continues to this day. This deck is incredible in that it brings to light so many things that continue to be issues within our culture. I'm painfully aware that many of the people I know would like to dismiss these shameful realities as remnants of the past, but they still exist in our present, and I so appreciate that this deck pulls these realities into sharp focus. Krista provides many links to additional information on her website by way of the guidebook, and I was grateful to be able to expand my understanding of key events in this way. Krista's articulation of the minor arcana is structured around arrows, wands, and fire, cups and water, weapons, swords, and air, and drums, earth, pentacles. Krista provides us with a wonderful quick reference guide for the meanings of each of the cards at the beginning of each suit in the guidebook, and each tarot card includes astrological correspondences, as I mentioned before. I love the way these suits are framed, and I so appreciate the historical events and movements that are included with these cards. The court cards are depicted as the scout, page, the warrior, knight, the uncle, queen, and the auntie, or the king. I love seeing the typical gender hierarchy of masculine kings being at the top swapped for the aunties instead. Krista titles the Oracle of Colonization as the Shadow Arcana, and this makes so much sense as the cards follow the same 22 card structure as the major arcana in tarot. Krista advises people of white colonizer descent to use caution when approaching this oracle deck, asking us to look at the ways in which these cards could look at not what is happening to us, but what we might be contributing to the situation itself. I appreciate this, and I have to admit that this deck has called attention to the many ways in which I've been complicit over the years. Anti-racism work is a daily undertaking, and for me it requires constant checking in and calling myself to account. I love that this deck functions as a tool for me to unpack and work with these aspects of myself. Does it challenge me? Absolutely, 100%. I found many of my buttons pushed through working with this deck, and I'm grateful for it, as these cards function as an important tool to help me work through these limitations and reach a deeper level of understanding of myself and the world around me. It has taken me far too long to wake up and see the reality that has always been right in front of me, and for that I am deeply ashamed. But I refuse to let that shame and regret get in the way of taking action to educate myself and my children and take steps to push back against the structures that we have blindly supported for far too long. I appreciate that this deck brings me discomfort, as it serves as an invitation to change my beliefs and, by extension, my behavior. One of my favorite cards from the Oracle of Colonization is number 6, the Righteous Rage card. In addition to being absolutely stunning, this card also pulls into sharp focus the ways in which individuals are expected to be palatable or nice when it comes to stating their concerns. This is quite frankly absolute bullshit. No one should have to censor themselves to make other people happy. This is a belief that is widely held with a response, if only they would say it nicely, then I would listen. No one should have to compromise themselves or what they have to say to please others, especially not in the context of an oppressive dominant culture. Representation and appropriation is a huge issue in the tarot world, and I love that this deck allows me to use cards that are created by someone from the culture that is being depicted within them. Card number 18, Sexual Lied, calls attention to the sexualization, objectification, and abuse enacted upon Indigenous individuals, which is further perpetuated when Indigenous culture is stolen and appropriated by outsiders. Krista has an absolutely phenomenal series of interviews on her YouTube channel, which goes through many of these cards and talks about them in detail. I'd highly recommend checking it out, as it is wonderful and highly informative. Card number 21, Healing, is another one of my favorites. I feel like this deck is an invitation to face up to and begin to heal toxic patterns and ways of being by calling attention to what is broken in our society. Only by honestly facing up to this reality with humility and a willingness to put in the work to enact change can we hope to shift out of these toxic structures and patterns. This deck is a phenomenal tool for getting started on that work. Krista has generously included a zine at the end of the guidebook, which includes a graphic novel with a written account of the images depicted and some absolutely beautiful poetry. I am so appreciative of this deck and everything I've learned from it. If you're a tarot practitioner, it provides you with a wonderful resource to expand the scope of your anti-racism work through the use of a traditional tarot structure. If tarot is not your thing, this deck can be used as a form of anti-racism education, encouraging you to step outside of your comfort zone and challenge long-held beliefs and behaviors. Krista's campaign for the Land Back Tarot and Oracle of Colonization ends on June 1st, so be sure to check it out. There are a couple of add-on tiers that I wanted to mention, including readings by Krista, who I have worked with in the past, and she is an incredibly talented reader. There's also some beautiful handmade jewelry by Emma Cardinal from Cardinal Traditions. The pieces are absolutely gorgeous, and I would highly recommend taking a look at that tier. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this review and check out this deck. It is absolutely fantastic, and I would highly, highly recommend looking into it.